Dedicated missionary service returns a dividend of eternal joy, which extends throughout mortality and into eternity.
I want it absolutely clear that I declared to the world, in the most straightforward language I could summon, that the Book of Mormon is true.
True disciples of Jesus Christ are willing to stand out, speak up, and be different.
If you're not a full-time missionary with a missionary badge pinned on your coat, now is the time to paint one on your heart.
God has something unimaginable in mind for you personally and the church collectively. A marvelous work and a wonder.
In this church, what we know will always trump what we do not know.
Missionary work is an identifying feature of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Always has it been, ever shall it be.
Let us be awake and not be weary of well-doing, for we are laying the foundation of a great work, even preparing for the return of the Savior.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Mission Prep Podcast. If you guys have found that the content that I've put out is helpful to you, and you want to know what you can do to share it with other preparing missionaries or anyone else that you think could benefit really, then go ahead and leave a rating and a review, because that's really going to be the best way to help others find this. I personally am going to keep doing this regardless if anyone listens to it or not, but I mean, the idea here is to reach as much of you as possible. My goal is to make sure that more missionaries are going out feeling prepared than ever before, and I can't do it alone, guys. I really can't. And to all of you who are listening, I am grateful for you, and I sincerely hope that you walk away from every episode feeling inspired and ready to just jump into your mission with both feet. That's what I want for you. I know that when you go out, the Spirit is going to be the real teacher and everything, and God is going to be the one working the miracles, but I want to help you deepen your well, because that's going to give God more to work with. They say the Spirit can't draw from an empty well, right? So the more you guys can learn now and the more skills that you develop, really the better equipped you will be as a missionary. God doesn't really need you. If he wanted to, he could do all of the work on his own. No, he wants you. He is invested in you, and he wants the best that you can offer. And he wants to give you the best that he has to offer you. He only really requires a willing heart, but watch what he will make of you when you show him your desire to learn all that you can. And by the way, guys, if you're listening to a nobody return missionary like me because you're looking for some help and advice, I am confident in saying that your willingness and desire to learn all that you can is definitely there. If you feel weak and simple and all you can give him is a willing heart, he will make you more than you ever could have dreamed possible. Okay, and remember that if you guys have any questions or feedback about anything that I talk about, please know that you can reach out to me on the Instagram page or through the email. All right, I am really excited for this episode today because it's going to completely change the way that you think. That's really my goal with every episode, but most likely the way you think right now about the thing that I'm going to be talking about today is probably the complete opposite of what I'm going to show you. And this change in your thoughts is really, really going to help you change the way you go about life if you can apply this principle and practice it. So what I want to talk about today is failure, and why the way we've brought up to see failure in our culture is kind of messed up, actually. It's all backwards. We are taught in our schools not to fail. We are taught that failing is a bad thing. If you fail, then you don't graduate high school. If you fail, then you're not good enough. If you fail, then it means you're not learning. If you fail, then it means you're not doing enough. Because of this, we fear failure and we avoid doing anything that we feel like we might fail at. We don't like taking risks because of the possibility of this failure. We hold back because we are afraid that if we do anything with an all-in attitude, we might fail. As a skateboarder, I kind of have to plan to fail on purpose. I learned the hard way that doing a trick wasn't worth doing unless I did it fully committed. It was when I hesitated or second-guessed myself either before or while doing a trick that it would end up in injury. It's usually when I resist falling that I end up experiencing more pain in the end, really. Like when I stick my arm out to catch myself to keep from falling, I end up with like a broken wrist or an arm. But if I just allow myself to feel the pain and let my body hit the ground, the worst that ever happens really are just a couple of bruises. I have to go into every trick with the mindset that I'm going to commit to it no matter what, even if it means that I fall or mess up. I would get absolutely nowhere, and honestly, I wouldn't have any fun with it at all if I didn't try anything that I knew I wasn't going to be able to do right away. Trying to learn new tricks involves a lot of falling and messing up and getting back up again. I mean, on average, when I'm learning to do a new trick, I won't even land it once until I've fallen or messed up like 100 times. And to get to the point where I can land that trick every time, it'll take hundreds of more failed attempts. Now, wouldn't it just be silly to reason that I shouldn't even try something in skateboarding if I knew I couldn't do it? I mean, that's just crazy. If I did that, then I wouldn't learn anything. The funny thing is that this is how we see everything else in life. Oh, I'm not going to go ask that person out because I know they're going to say no. I'm not going to run track because I know I'm going to be slower than everyone else. I'm not going to start that school club because no one is going to want to join. People are just going to make fun of me. I'm not going to try out for the basketball team because I know I won't make the cut. The reason we think like this is because we are taught that failure is a bad thing. We are taught that failure keeps us from succeeding, but really the exact opposite is true. Not failing is what keeps you exactly where you guys are at. In skateboarding, every trick is on the other side of many, many failed attempts. And I just have to accept that. Failure is a sign of growth and commitment. If I'm not falling a lot when I'm skateboarding, it means that I am holding back, and honestly, it feels so much better to fall or make a mistake, knowing that I committed and gave it my all, than to know that I let fear of failure hold me back from trying my best and finding my limits. So guess what, guys? Things like your future spouse, they're going to be on the other side of a lot of rejection and heartbreak. Making that basketball team won't come without missing a lot of shots. For those of you who lift weights, what do you need to do to build more muscle? You have to achieve muscle failure. You have to keep putting on weight until you physically can't lift anymore. That's how you build muscle and get stronger. When you guys are on your mission, you're not going to find that golden investigator without being told no a lot. You're going to have to make a lot of invitations for baptism before you actually have somebody say yes. You're going to have to invite a lot of people to read and pray about the Book of Mormon before you'll get someone to actually do it. You can't be afraid to make those invitations just because someone might say no or not do it. The more you are willing to get said no to, the more likely you are to find those people who will accept the message. If we were taught that our greatest victories were on the other side of failure, then we wouldn't be so afraid of trying hard things and fully committing to them. Let me give you guys a couple examples of people who have learned the skill of failure tolerance. Thomas Edison is a great one. He's usually the first person that comes to mind when we try to think of someone who succeeded as the result of literally thousands of failures. Thousands of failures. This dude literally had to find 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb before he was able to land on the idea that actually worked. Imagine how different the world would be if after a few tries he was just like, well, okay, I guess this isn't going to work, so I'm just going to give up. No. Instead, he said, I didn't fail 10,000 times. I figured out 10,000 ways to not build a light bulb. It's this kind of perspective that allowed him to keep experimenting and trying things out until he got it right. He obviously had a really high tolerance for failure. Another great example of this is Walt Disney. I actually just learned recently that he was fired from a newspaper because he lacked creativity. Did you guys know that? Like, are you freaking kidding me? This guy has to have one of the most creative minds of anyone who has ever existed. No, he wasn't just born with this creativity. It didn't just come to him naturally. Otherwise, he would never have been fired from that newspaper. But he saw failure as a learning opportunity. Failing was what helped him to turn a weakness into strength. He probably would have never been able to accomplish what he's done in his life and left the legacy that he's left if he wouldn't have been willing to put himself out there and experience some failure. I think the best example we have for all of this is in the scriptures. Like, what about Adam and Eve, right? You remember how in the Book of Mormon it says, Adam fell that men might be? Guys, the whole plan Us being here and being able to experience life itself, the greatest miracle of all, wouldn't have happened if Adam and Eve weren't willing to fall. They realized their own progression and the progression of the whole human family would never have been able to happen if they had not been willing to fail. The fall was supposed to happen. It had to happen. Otherwise, they would still be in the Garden of Eden, knowing basically nothing, and we wouldn't even be here. Think about what we were probably saying when we were all floating up around in heaven as spirits. Do you think any one of us would have been saying, no, I'm not going to go down there and have a shot at exaltation because I'm afraid that I might fail? The very reason we are even here is because we were willing to come and make mistakes and sin and learn from them. The only way we could ever learn to be like God was to be here in our fallen condition and to learn from our own mistakes. Imagine if a parent never let their child learn how to walk because they didn't want them to fail trying. They were too afraid that they would fall and get hurt. There's not a single parent on the planet that thinks this way. It's just freaking insanity to me that we have all given into this massive lie that if we want to be successful, then we need to avoid failure. Like, guys, it's just so crazy. It's the complete opposite of what we've been raised to believe. Maybe there are some of you out there who might be afraid of serving a mission at all because you are afraid that you might come home early. Well, let me tell you guys what I think about that. Who freaking cares? There's seriously so much taboo in the church about this, and it just needs to stop. Missionaries come home early all the time for many, many reasons, and you shouldn't let that keep you from at least giving it a shot if you're afraid that you might fail or not live up to your own expectations. And guys, can I tell you a little secret of mine? I technically came home quote unquote early for my mission. I served my heart out for 14 months and I had to come home for mental health reasons. And I have never even for one moment seen myself or my mission as a failure, and I am forever grateful for the opportunity that I had to serve. I served a mission. End of story. There's a quote by Nelson Mandela that I absolutely love. He said, "I never lose. I either win or I learn." That's all it has to be, guys. Let me give you a few more great quotes to help you see this perspective more clearly. Elder Uchtdorf says, "No one likes to fail, but we mortals do not become champions without effort and discipline or without making mistakes. Mistakes are proof you are trying. Our destiny is not determined by the number of times we stumble, but by the number of times we rise up, dust ourselves off, and move forward." President Teddy Roosevelt said, "It is hard to fail, but it is worse to have never tried to succeed." Elder Lindsey Robbins says, "Each mistake we make becomes a lesson in wisdom, turning stumbling blocks into stepping stones." And President Monson said once, "Sometimes courage is the little voice at the end of the day that says, 'I'll try again tomorrow.'" We did not come here to be perfect. We came here to learn from our mistakes and our sins. You aren't going to go on a mission because you are going to do it perfectly. No one is going to be a perfect missionary. You're going to mess up and you're going to make mistakes, and there are going to be a lot of things you say that might come out awkwardly. Heck, you might even come home earlier than planned. But remember that God, He doesn't need you to do His work. He simply wants you to participate so that He can show you what He is capable of, and because He wants to make you into something great. He couldn't do that if you were already perfect. The only reason He can do that is because you fail and mess up. He wants to show you that even a failure like you can participate in the greatest and most important work that there is in this world. You don't have to be perfect or do it perfectly. The way that you guys can get better at this is by being willing to fail. Having a willingness to fail will build your failure tolerance. This is just like when you expose yourself to something more and more, you develop a greater tolerance for it, whatever it is, and this includes failing. When you want to accomplish something, plan for the failures that you'll experience along the way. Not to avoid them, but to experience them and learn from them. The more willing you are to fail, the greater results you will have and the greater success you will find. Thank you all for joining me on this episode. That's all I forgot for you today. I hope that now you are ready to get out there and go faceplant it. Go get rejected by that girl. Go miss that basket. Go be embarrassed. Go get told no over and over again. Your mission will thank you for it, and the people you will find will thank you for it. If you guys have any success stories of this, then I would love to hear about them and share them. You guys know where to get a hold of me. Until then, I'll catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.